Well, we're back with another episode of Techman Talks Dynamics. We're in our new studio, so it might be a little bit of an echo because we're still waiting to do some final little bits and pieces to finish it off. But I think it's the first time all four of us have been in the same room for a podcast, at least for what seems like three, 4 months, something like that. So great to have everybody back around the microphones on the same table. And we're going to cover today one of the popular episodes we do on the podcast in terms of the amount of people that watch it, is what's new and planned for the next release of Business Central, which is going to start on October the 1st and run through till about March next year. So these things can drip out in that time period. So we've got all the caveats out of the way. Yep. Some stuff might not come, some more stuff might appear.
And we're just talking about what they've published on the doc site so far, which probably will have a few extra things drop on, I think.
Or some things drop off.
Well, they'll probably put the dates back in terms of when they'll have general availability sometimes. Most of them, I think, say October or November 25 at the moment from what I can see.
So what we're saying is don't expect on the 1st of October all of this stuff to be there, because it will, some of it will be, some of it won't be, some of it might change, some of it
Seasoned Business Central users are used to this, that it arrives at some point, but nobody can.
And we'll do one closer to the date when we get the actual, this is what's happening in October, but let's kick off. So I know you've all had a quick scan down, have a look at this. It's been out for a couple of weeks. Anything catch your eye? Anything? I mean, as always, agents are a big part with Copilot on this as well. There's a lot of information around that, but there's a few other bits and pieces as well. I don't know where you want to start. At the top of the list and work down?
Start with Copilot and Agents. It's the biggest part of this release, isn't it?
Shouldn't you leave it to last, though, so that people
stay to let's get on with it.
No, because they might want to know the other stuff. And that's
okay.
So I think, that clearly ongoing work, and I think Microsoft is still kind of really trying to make agents what they need to be, and that's not a quick process. To automate what the whole kind of thought process that a human would do if they were doing that role, and to give it all of that capability. And there's two things. So you've got the sales order agent, which is maturing and kind of goes across to things like order promising and all that stuff now. But then you've got the new payables agent as well, which is kind of a different stream of work. But both of those seem to be adding capability into the kind of toolkit for agents. So I think...
we talked about the sales order agent on quite a few podcasts now. People are going to start to have the option to actually use this.
Well, they have now. They could use it.
And it's been enhanced now. We will do more. It will handle more situations.
So some of the things that he's been talking about, like when attachments come through at the moment, it was quite limited on what it could look at if there was an attachment on an email that you wanted the sales order to. So
had to be in the email body.
So this is where we're starting to see, as you said, the maturity of some of these agents, and this is sales order agents, the first one they've gone with. What's new in that? So we've talked about rather than
the first thing, it's going general availability, so it's coming out of preview. So that's the
so people can actually use it rather than just
probably rely on it a bit more. Yeah. Kind of, it's worth putting some time and effort and investment into getting it going when it's general availability, because it kind of means that it's not going to disappear or come back in a completely different form. Preview, there's nothing kind of guaranteed about how it will end up.
Okay, so where was some of the limitations and what's being added to the next release, which is going to help?
So I think the whole process, and there's lots of minor things. There's some stuff in the docs, and there's some stuff I've noticed that I don't think is in the docs or I haven't found in the docs yet. That's just, and it's very, I would use the analogy is if you were training somebody to do the job of putting an order on, you'd probably start with the basic, here's an email that says 3 things this customer wants to order, go put those on. And that's what they did first off. Now they're kind of going back and all the nuances of, first, one of the first that happened late last year was availability, and it said, do you have this? Do you have the pricing? And what's this customer's selling price for it? So they added that in after feedback from some of the preview customers. Now they've gone further to say, okay, if we don't have it, can we run it through promising and see when we could have it, given the lead time for either the vendor or the manufacturer process if you're using the premium edition. So it's kind of every every time they get to a point and release it, I'm sure it's damn frustrating for Microsoft because they just think, oh, this is really good. This is, and then some annoying reviewer comes back and said, yeah, but what happens if this and what about? Yes. And, so they keep having to add different capabilities. You covered the one about attachment processing, support for multiple ship-to addresses as well, because,
But it can now determine that. So from an end user perspective, it can determine that if that's mentioned in the email that it wants to go to, that's what we're saying, rather than just having the one
go and
delivery.
look it up and see
say,
if you're selling to some stores and there's multiple stores in the same chain, which one do they want this order delivered to, and kind of that thing.
So we're seeing the agent interact or understand more of the information that's in the email body that's come in that's triggered this for it to be useful. Okay. I mean, one of the things I saw as well when we Microsoft showed some of this was the additional instructions. I mean, they've mentioned that.
Yeah.
That I thought was really cool. So if the agent struggles with something or says, I don't know what to do here, so I need your help, human being.
It almost stopped before.
Yeah.
The process, the agent process, I don't know what to do here. You just have to sort it out. Okay. But now you can interact with it and say, okay, this is what you need to do, and it can then continue.
Right. And would it remember that? So if you told it that, I don't know, there was something happened, and it would know the next time it encountered that, it would then follow that process, or it would always just drop at the moment, or haven't we got that far to playing with?
I don't know.
Okay.
Well, you'd hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, there is elements on the purchasing agent where it's remembering stuff.
Right. Okay.
So,
and that's, I guess, what people want in certain scenarios.
it learns.
Yeah, I think the capable to promise responses are interesting because in my experience with a lot of our existing customers, they don't use the item availability properly in BC anyway. So I think it'd be interesting if people want to start using features like that in the future, start using them now and make sure and validate that it's giving the correct responses, and then you'll have the confidence then when the agent's available, the agent can do it.
So just for people, because we're down into the weeds of Business Central here. So on a kind of availability, you have what's in inventory in that location. That's fine. If you haven't got enough inventory in that location, you can do two levels: available to promise and capable to promise. Capable to promise means that you've set all of your manufacturing up. You have routings, times.
You flag the items as critical because it'll only calculate that if you've ticked critical on the items down the bill of material.
Yeah, so there's kind of, and yes, you've got to have all your kind of
vendor lead times as well, and all that kind of stuff, so that it can build up when it thinks you will be able to deliver those.
And rosters for all your different machine centres and all the rest of it. So it will do a straightforward, it just goes and says, this is possibly the first time that I've got capability to do it. So have you got capacity constraints on? Where are those kicked in? So there's a lot of kind of, I show it sometimes in pre-sales, and every salesperson in the room goes, ooh, we really need that. And I'm like, hang on, there's an awful lot of data set up that you have to do in lots of detail to get right.
But if the good thing is when you run planning,
yes,
it's going to then, you're not going to get exception messages because the data is based upon what planning would then in effect give you. This is when you need to go and buy, this is when you need to go and make. So it's the right thing to do. However, buyer beware, if you're using assembly to order, it goes, you can have it today.
Yes, you can assemble an infinite amount of stuff.
Yep, it doesn't care about whether you got the components, so you just got to be a bit careful if you're using assemble to order with available to promise or capable to promise. So.
I think there's a lot of when we see a lot of customers, they reach a level of sophistication with what they do with the Business Central. Agencies going to force them to go a level.
Yeah. Well, it's like a lot of customers still don't use reservations. Now, if you don't use reservations, you will potentially oversell using an automated response. You could potentially oversell your stock.
You've got somebody new in the business that understands a little bit about it, but they only understand what's in front of them. There's no interpretation, so
exactly, yeah. So
the data has to be right for it to get the right answer.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think while you're talking about agents, it's worth mentioning again. I know we've done it before. an agent, there will be a cost of using those agents.
It's not free.
Yeah.
Copilot
It's not
within
free.
Business Central is free, but the agents,
Correct.
there is a cost. And
it's a per transaction cost.
yeah, and we were talking about this if you're on certain plans that they don't roll over those credits or those transactions. If you haven't used them all, they're not rolling over to the next month. So just be aware of what Microsoft are doing there. But so agents, we looked at the sales order agent. Anything from the payables agent?
Well, the payables agent,
Looking a lot better than it's
it's a rapid evolution. I think is probably the way to do it. Looking at historical purchase invoices to see what you did last time. That was always my training exercise. If you were posting purchase invoices, you wouldn't understand where to post it or what coding to give it. When did we have this last time from this vendor? Go and have a look at what that was posted with. And
So at least if it was wrong before, it's consistently wrong.
Yes.
The nice thing is it's not just kind of saying, oh, okay, that description, it's I don't know, rental or whatever, therefore it always goes there. It's interpreting the description. So, okay, it's rent for some, machinery as opposed to rental for cars. And I understand that, therefore I'm going to post it to a different account. So that's adding some, see how well it performs, but that's a nice feature for that kind of process, that it's taking some understanding, but like James said, also reviewing what you've done before to say, okay, well, historically, when it's this kind of description, this is where we've posted it.
You start going through those scenarios and you see the complexity that's going on behind here when we are trusting AI at least to give us a suggestion. This is what we're still seeing, that there will be a human element of review at this moment in time, and as it matures, as it gets better, as we said, the memory or the learning begins to really kick in, it will improve. But these are the first two agents that Microsoft have rolled in Business Central, so I think they are slowly. They talked about especially the sales order agent for a while. Now we're seeing it. Now we're seeing the advances. I think we forget. We are talking about this every 6 months. It's not that long a time to actually get on and keep pushing forward. We seem to sit here regularly reviewing these, and you think, crumbs, where's the time gone? But there are improvements now coming quite quickly on that sales order agent. Once they've got the foundation in, they seem to be moving.
Well, if you think about it, agents in Business Central was the big reveal at Directions last year, which was last November. We're just 9 months in, so it wasn't even a concept before that. They're getting to somewhere.
It's quite remarkable how quickly it's
evolving. And I think it's going to. I don't see it stopping any. I think the next 3 or 4 or 5 years are going to see more and more and more of this. What I would say is, you look at what this purchasing agent is doing, and this is where people are starting to understand the threat to roles within the community, because most businesses have somebody who posts, handles purchase invoices, and often once they've been enrolled for a couple of years, I know how we handle that. I know how that's got to be allocated. I know how, where that's got to be coded to and who's got to approve it and so on. And that kind of, that knowledge that's built up in that individual, you can see how quickly potentially that's going to transfer across to the agent, because they don't have to be there for 2, 3, 4 years to get that detailed knowledge. They can just go look at the past history and go, well, that's what you did last time. These are the 3 options. Which one do you want?
And of course, that person leaves. You've lost all that knowledge with an agent. You don't lose it.
So I think it's getting to the point. It will be interesting to see what the next agent is. I'm actually quite pleased that Microsoft are focusing on trying to get these 2 agents much more polished and rounded and finished, rather than proliferating.
50.
I think that's important. I mean, trust in anything with IT systems is critical. If you don't trust what's coming out,
especially AI.
And so with AI, so you're either going to tell it to stop and then get a human to review absolutely everything, which actually is probably not going to save you much time, or they build it up bit by bit, as you said, like you would train somebody else, train a new person into that role until you think, okay, you've got that, right, let me show you something else, until you get to a point where you trust that individual, and the same will be
that will drive kind of confidence to try a third one when they introduce it. Whereas if they'd done 10 different ones that didn't do the job well enough. It would help
give people ideas of where they could use this technology in other areas, that it would give them really good business cases. Because until you start seeing something like that in action, it can be quite difficult to. Because we found that when people first started to how would that be used? Yeah. What business situation would you use that in? What where could that save time and help?
Well, it's interesting to talk about confidence, because that's one of the features they've added in as well, is that on the matching side of it, it even comes up and shows you its level of confidence, what it believes, how confident
do I think I've got this right? Yeah.
So, I think just going back to the plan, what you're starting to see is, I noticed some of the Copilot features are starting to be extensible as well. And I think, that's the first time I've really noticed that. Maybe you could do before, but it certainly wasn't kind of implicitly stated. And I think that it's really interesting to see. It will be really interesting when agents, the toolkit that they've used to build agents, one, they toss it over the fence so partners can use it. We can use it to build an agent for a vertical or something of that nature. And two, whether, the order agent, how do you extend that? It is aware of extensions that you've put in. It's using the metadata on the page. So if you've put an extra field on the order page or the quote page, it will have a go at trying to work out what should go in there if the email contains something that references that metadata. But I still think that the extensibility, it's always been the key thing for Business Central. Yeah. It's central, it's secret sauce, right from the nav days, and we need to get into that and see how that works. Which brings us on to another feature that's on the new list, which is the kind of MCP server. And I guess a lot of the listeners won't kind of understand kind of what an MCP server does. And it kind of, to give it's a way of talking to Business Central from an external application in natural language and getting a result. I can ask. It's
a standard as well. It's not just BC. It's
correct. So there's MCP servers started to pop up for all sorts of in the IT space, all sorts of tools that we use, and we're already using them on a daily basis for things like DevOps and so on. But when this gets to the application level, I think the potential here is just mind blown, because I think, again, in the future, you'll be able to talk to an MCP server for one of your vendors, one of your suppliers, and say, can you update all of the dates against our outstanding purchase order lines? Now, at the moment, there's no security protocol, so it's probably only going to be used internally, but I'm sure loads of people are working on that. And kind of, the customer service questions that you get all the time, I think, MCP servers have the ability to do that. And the exchange of information between organisations in the future is going to be amazing.
So that's agent talking to agent.
Yes.
Effectively, so.
I mean, at the moment it can be agent talking to person.
Yeah.
But you're not having to go into the application and go to a specific place or send an email to a specific address.
Yeah, you just say, tell me when the delivery date is for this order, and it returns.
I tested this not on BC, but on Office with Outlook calendars. So the Microsoft 365 calendars. So went to Copilot Studio, hit new, didn't give any other settings, just give it a name. And then went to the tools, and then you can drill down and it shows you a list of available MCP servers. So if Business Central was there, I could choose
it will be
Business Central, click save, and I've now got an agent. Okay, I can go to the little box at the side and ask Business Central questions in a natural language. It's limited, they're limited to certain functions and data that they provide. So it's looking like it's probably going to be customers, sales order, that kind of information, suppliers, products, maybe. So it's not going to be everything about BC, but the ability to create an agent with Copilot Studio and add BC as one of those MCP servers, and lots of other different tools you can hook into, then all of a sudden you can start to build some quite powerful systems. Easily as well.
I think that whole piece and kind of making that customer service piece, so what should I expect for delivery tomorrow, or kind of, what's the reference for the delivery you've sent me, all of those sorts of stuff. And I think, yes, I'm hoping that's going to be done in a way where we're going to be able to extend the back end of it, so that if there's consistent queries, if you're getting emails or phone calls or whatever which have the same question time after time, we're going to enable that, potentially put it on your app, the app that your customers use, or your website, just to say, here's a question, that website goes to your back end, asks that question, provides the result with no effort. So it can happen 24/7, that sort of capability. And I think that, that's going to be really powerful, because if you look at a lot of roles, customer facing roles, they're tied up asking routine questions with just an update of what's it looking like today. And for the first time, okay, we can get a bot to do that reliably in a way, with Business Central as the data source for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mind-blowing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think this whole natural language thing is it's removing that barrier, isn't it? That you always had to know something about what you were asking, or the system you were asking to get the answer, and that's
if you've got
bit by bit
attributes set up against your products in BC, and you could see, have you got a product that does this, fulfills this specification, and have you got any? When can I get it? What's my price? Just asking those questions naturally, then
comes back to your data all the time, doesn't it?
Does.
You got them set up, and Okay, there's a few more I think on Copilot. I noticed it's again, this comes back to suggestions, that it's still suggesting to us the answer to certain things. But I thought on the sustainability things, the gas emissions now, again, it's looking at what you've got in the system, and it will suggest at least the gas emissions in the journals, I think, for the sustainability stuff, looking at that. So again, just automating certain things, and you just say, yeah, that looks about right. So that's going to save up. And I know we've been spoiled a little bit, haven't we? Because everything comes in English first. But for anybody that's not that, they are expanding this into different languages, or Spanish and Danish. We're now for the agents, and there's 20 new languages for just the general chat.
And the sustainability piece, I mean, it was announced really in the wave one, but I don't think it's here. I haven't seen it. Kind of what the scope 3, and also to make it part of the core transaction. So sustainability previously,
it was like it was almost a standalone.
You needed a separate team, because it didn't connect to anything. Yeah.
Whereas now it's fundamentally part.
Yeah. So when I do a purchase transaction, I can say against that purchase transaction what the environmental parts of that transaction are, and it will post as the sustainability ledger as part of that core
your payables
purchase
agent will
transaction.
work that out for you and do it for you.
Steady. Maybe not in wave 2, but that's probably coming, and kind of. And so the same, I think, from what I can read, if you do sales and purchasing, if you're a distributor, then effectively you can look at all your inputs and outputs, and if you need to, post it as part of the core transaction to calculate your environmental impact.
Separate sustainability journals like you have to.
So one person can do the whole transaction, whereas before somebody had to do the kind of financial, logistical side of the transaction, and then almost pass the piece of paper across to the team who did the sustainability transaction. So this feels like it's a much more kind of. This feels like it's usable, frankly, rather than something that you only did if you really had to.
It's nice that Microsoft, sometimes we see these big vendors, they announce something almost like a box ticking exercise to put on the checklist. We do sustainability. Yeah, and they've continued to add to it. I mean, just looking at this, there was some stuff that obviously came in April, but you've probably got another 15 to 20 features around sustainability. So they're taking it seriously.
But it's new legislation as well, so it's constantly evolving. Yeah. So you've got no choice but to keep up with it.
But it's good that they've done that, isn't it? Because I think a lot of people will do the bare minimum. I think BCE is getting a reputation. Not only will it do it at a very high level, it will drive down and can handle more complex and detailed situations. So I know you've looked at this in a bit more detail.
I mean, this and the e-documents piece, it feels like that they've taken feedback from the people on the bleeding edge. and they've put some stuff in there so that, you know, if you get an orphan transaction, you can remove it. You can preview a PEPL purchase invoice before you post it, and things like that. And it's just kind of like, well, yeah, you know, in theory, you might say, well, why would you need to do that? But in some instance, you know, this is the real world stuff of, hang on, when this happens, what do we do? Because we're in a catch-22 situation now. So I think it feels, you know, that the old thing about Microsoft's third release is the one to jump on. I still think this is about the third release of sustainability and e-documents, and they're slowly getting there where actually pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think from those points of view, there's anything else you want to cover in terms of financial management? There's anything on there?
It's just some nice little features, you know. So useful. If you've bought, I don't know, 5 new laptops, rather than having to create 5 separate fixed assets cards, it can automate that process for you, because obviously you don't want them as one fixed asset because they probably don't all go out of service on the same date. So just nice little usability. It amazes me how many of our customers have fixed assets as part of their license, because everybody does, and still does their fixed assets on a spreadsheet, because it is so easy to do in BC. So there's a standard training course. It's very, very easy.
Financial reports, there's a few nice things in there.
And that just keeps getting better all the time, doesn't it? So they're making the formatting a little bit better, so it looks nicer.
Dynamic column names is nice as well.
It's just, again, it's something that amazes me how many customers don't use it and still produce those kinds of reports.
In Excel.
You know, almost produce a TB from the system and then do everything else outside, whether that's using Jet or even manually. And actually it's all there and ready to use.
Notice calculate excise taxes is a feature. Clearly,
I like the
tariffs
description of
have
it.
come in quite a hot topic in the last 6 months, and a framework for excise tax calculation. So you can adapt it to various requirements. So,
necessary evil, I think. Is,
So I'd be interested to see the detail of that, and there's not a lot here.
Well, the initial release doesn't include any specific model or compliance reports. It provides a framework for excise tax calculation. It's a starting point.
Okay.
But again, it's
good,
it's
though,
new,
isn't it?
it's new stuff. It's
comes up
evolving
sometimes,
all
doesn't
the
it?
time. They can't spend, you know, thousands and millions investing on something that's just going to keep changing. So like you said, they build a framework, and then as James said, by the time you get to the third, fourth version, the legislation's much more mature and you've got a proper product. That's the beauty of the SaaS model as well, isn't it? It will just keep evolving.
I was
rather than
speaking to a customer the other day, and this is coming in, I think it's just about to hit with vapes, with the liquid for vapes. But that's
in the UK.
That's taking excise charges now.
Good.
So it's you know, all those little shops out there have to go and, you know, they have to have the little silver seal on the bottles, and there's a barcode on there that's got a reference to each bottle, just to check that it's properly paid for.
Okay, just keep on scrolling down at the moment.
Supply chains had some
love.
Some love, yeah. Quality. So there's a quality app appearing for doing QC checks on various points, like goods in, production output. So you can set up tests, put in the results, and decide whether that's passed or failed. So
we've got a lot of customers, haven't we, that have been asking for that.
That's a feature that's been missing for a long time.
Is that part of Essentials, do we know yet, or is that premium?
I think
good question.
I think this is the first one, I believe, and that's going to be an optional install. So I think they've learned from the subscription process that obviously they added subscription management last year, and they forced it into every production Business Central instance, and there was a few things that were, let's say, suboptimal, shall we? In terms of it created
crap?
it means wrong. They shouldn't have done, and so the feedback. So my understanding of this is that quality will be on app source and that you can just go pick it. I believe it
says the implementation details. System releases these features as an extension from app source.
So in the same
so
I was wondering whether you needed full manufacturing because it's.
No, you can do against purchase, I believe.
Purchase, that's good.
It's a good way of doing it, isn't it? I guess you're not forcing it on people that don't require it or break something that's already there.
Why do I have to go and test for something I'm never going to use?
Purchase receipts, production output, assembly output, and manual
so it should
and
be
schedule
essentials
checks.
then as well. Yeah.
I'm interested to see. The key for me is what's availability look like if it hasn't passed.
I was just about to say, because we were talking about item availability just before. What if something sat in QC?
So
or has failed QC?
The big question I've got is kind of how, almost is there a quarantine feature against your item ledger entry?
Yeah.
It's always been the quantity is available, and therefore you've ended up with all sorts of fudges to go around the fact that there isn't quantity, virtual.
It'd be interesting to see.
So it kind of, again, I had some discussions with some of the product team around this and just said, if you try and do quality and you haven't got a quarantine solution, then really you're gonna, it has value, but it's got a lot less value. I think if you have a quarantine situation where the stock isn't available, the inventory isn't available until it's passed, then there's going to be an awful lot of people who are going to jump on that, because that's a difficult customization
complexity
to do.
if you're capable to promise that.
That's it, yeah.
Well,
should you make an assumption that one in every however many is going to fail?
But it has to, doesn't it? Because if you've receipted some stuff in from a vendor and it's rubbish, it's all damaged or whatever, and it's got to go back, you can't promise to deliver it to a customer.
That's got to be a great use for an agent as well, though, somewhere, hasn't there, in terms of working out where there's been issues and where you should be doing additional checks and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, looking at the history of failures.
We're getting carried away now.
That's
a great business case for an agent.
If it, returns. So the absolute madness of reservations, if you just let it reserve and kind of go on availability, it will assume that the return coming back from this customer is available to send straight out to this customer on the same day it arrives. And it's like, hang on, they're sending it back for a reason, potentially.
So which is why everyone has a separate returns location, which no one ever clears down.
And transfers in. And
returns is always messy though, isn't it?
Yes.
It obviously needs an agent. Returns, it's always a bit of a mess. Especially you go into a customer's warehouse and you know which bits the returns. You just look at it, can't you?
It's the pile in. Yes, next to goods in, where they just go, we'll sort that out one day, but it's not the priority. But how many customers have we been to who have got the value in their returns pile financially is a lot more than it should have been. So. So let's look at quality, because that'll do. The other thing to say is I think a lot of the vertical solutions ourselves, Clever Dynamics has a quality. How we're going to integrate and put this all together, that's going to be a big question. Will they launch the quality module? Will they make it extensible? Because when they launched subscription, for instance, it was internal only, and you couldn't do anything to it for a while. So I think...
Which tends to be the way when you get a new app that's been bought in, though, isn't it?
I get it, because that means Microsoft can change stuff at the back end with no breaking changes. So,
Shopify
but until,
was like that, wasn't it?
Shopify was like that.
It was completely locked down.
But, Matt, how useful is it? I mean, the only thing is it really signposts that it's coming, and don't do anything in that area for the next 12 months until it's all worked its way out. You can't actually use it if it's internal only, by and large, because even putting something from one of those tables onto a document, how do you reference that? So there's a whole bunch of gotchas that I think you keep hitting. Internal for me, get it finished before you put it out the door, or say it's coming for the release after next.
Yeah, exactly. So a customer doesn't spend X amount
trying to
that's
kind
essentially going
of
to
cursing it and then writing it off because actually it's not, and not coming back to it later.
There's quite a bit of info on there around what it allegedly does. Just to clarify one point, because I'd said it is available in app source, it is an extension, but it does also state the extension installs on newly deployed environments, only upgraded environments that get it from app source. So it will be there. If it's
so they've learned from the sustainability today. So but I think that's probably not bad.
But one of the things around is one of the pieces, the community feedback I think has been, if you uninstall something from your production instance, so you have it comes with everything, you go through, you clean it up, because
you don't want bloatware, do you? You don't want stuff.
Why would I want the interface to import transactions from GP in my production instance? I don't need it, so I uninstall it. And then previously, what's been happening, as soon as you go through the upgrade process, it just put it back in. So I'm hoping that if you uninstall quality, for instance, it stays uninstalled even on a new instance. I think it should be the customer's active decision that I want this.
Yeah.
Okay. Subcontracting gets some love as well, and that's
much needed.
Yeah. Being able to do a warehouse receipt from a subcontractor. So, if you've got, which most of our customers tend to have, if they've got a warehouse, they'll be using warehousing to do receiving.
We're still come back from a subcontractor.
Except if it's a subcontractor, you have to go to the purchase order, type in the quantity you've received and post it there. So it's a different process. So that's been built into warehousing.
How many customers, out of all our customers, how many customers do you know that have successfully used subcontracting properly?
Not many, but they, some will try and struggle with it and continue with it. A lot will just go, let's just do a simpler way. Let's just class it as a route, and we'll just post the invoices in the background as a GL or something like that. It's not ideal. So it's needed some love to make it a bit more usable. Yeah. And there's I don't know the details of it, but logistics flow that manage subcontract transfers for raw materials, components. If that's going to be better, that's good.
Because a lot of subcontractors have, what's commonly referred to as free issues. So you're sending material from a vendor direct to that subcontractor. Because if it's the first op, why would you bring the material into you to then go out to the subcontractor? I think the other, there's other common subcontract processes, things like paint or finishing process. Heat treatment is another one the one that always tripped me up with is that you can't actually, the schedule for subcontractor doesn't really work because it's not minutes, is it? And you can't start a subcontract process when you finish the previous operation. Typically they'll collect once, maybe once a day, maybe once a week, and return the following week. And how do you put that into a schedule in BC? Because it, by definition, they are not on your site; they're somewhere else, and it's hence the logistic process. So I'm really hoping they get the scheduling of subcontract right.
People tend to do, just a fixed setup time, because you can't do a run time because that's not real world, or a wait time or something like, just to give a block of time to say it goes out for 3 days.
How many minutes is 7 days or something? Yes, and then how how does it respect calendars, kind of, if it's across a weekend and there's a public holiday and all that. So it's never worked well. So I'm really hopeful for that, because it's a key part.
Enhanced usability and more transparency. So again, that sounds promising, because it's a bit kind of, you look at a purchase order, you don't know it's
broad though, isn't it, as a statement?
Yeah, you don't know a purchase order is a subcontract purchase order without either knowing the vendor or going to the line and doing a page inspection to go and see that there's a production order number field filled in. It's a bit kind of hidden. So
subcontract worksheet, when is something ready to go to a subcontractor?
Yeah.
So, because at the moment it will just list everything, and perhaps the previous operation has been completed. So, typically the subcontract, you do the subcontract worksheet and say, that can't go yet, that can't go yet, that can't go yet. Oh yeah, that one's ready.
And what's been sent and what's come, the coming back pieces are right, but you don't know when it's been sent or not. Unless you're doing a movement of raw materials to them, which again, if it's the third operation, isn't necessarily the raw materials that you started with.
Yeah, and it's been a bit of a tick box exercise, hasn't it, previously? And I think hopefully it's now getting to something that's really useful.
Okay, I'm conscious we're 40 odd minutes into this. Is there anything else that people want to drive in just to close up?
Should we? I mean, for the developers out there, truncate table data with new AL method. A new kind of command in AL to delete large volumes of data. And it ignores any kind of row by row. Use with care, I think. Yes. It's it very much like that, but I think sometimes you back to the stupid situation where customer needs to get rid of some history, and it's like multiple nights to schedule X amount to delete on the first night, X amount on the second night. This should...
If only you could go into SQL and do a truncate, eh?
Yes. So I think that's kind of, that has come... if the method is used with filters, in effect, it says it copies the data to a temporary table and moves it back after truncation. So if you've, because truncate just wipes the table out, so if you've applied filters to that table first, effectively it's going to move. I'm assuming, I haven't tried it, but I would assume it's fairly quick at doing that. So if finally we have a viable way to say, right, remove all the entries in this log table that are older than 3 months.
Customers said, I've got 5 years worth of change log entries.
Yes.
I think...
You've got 5 nights worth of deletion activity then, haven't you?
And some more sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be really useful. But, development, extend Copilot autofill, and expand Copilot summaries potentially, so we can make those a bit more useful.
Have you tried using the field
autofill?
Yeah, I turn it off. It's really annoying.
I think I fundamentally disagree with this because just because I put this on this field on the last record, I want the user to actually think about what they should be completing this time.
Yeah.
Just because I put 10,000 euros in the credit limit last time doesn't mean I want 10,000 euros in the credit limit this time, does it?
And that's not a great example, is it? I bet you turned off predictive text when it first came out, didn't you?
It's kind of...
I know better.
Well, but, it's a system of record. It's not supposed to work. I get what they're trying to do. It's kind of, it predicts that this might be the address for this customer. But again, if somebody doesn't verify that it is the right address, suddenly you're sending all the invoices to somewhere that...
Yeah. The tell me's got, last piece maybe, conscious of time, the tell me when you Alt-Q or whatever it is on a Mac to search for something.
On a what?
It then uses AI to kind of interpret what you're asking. So rather than it trying, to find an exact menu by the way you typed it in, it's going to use AI. Whether you can describe the type of thing that you want, and it goes, well, you probably want this page then, I don't know, but it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, I did wonder that when you said you could extend the Copilot summaries. That's using as a developer, your expertise to put some information in there, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay, so... if
guide it towards what people want to know. And I think, that potentially is going to make it really useful. So I'm going and looking at a sales order that's got like 200 lines on it. How many lines are, what's outstanding, what's the next due date for delivery, kind of, there's key bits of information that I would expect somebody to be scrolling up and down the lines looking for. If that can go into the summary, and I think, what it put in the summary was like statistical information about the customer or overall about the order. Actually, the person managing that order wants to know what's the current status of this order. Has it been picked and is ready for shipment? Is there, what stage in logistics is this order at, and kind of can I reopen it and change it or so on. That's the summary information that I would expect somebody to want in that situation. You know what I mean? Or how many times has this customer been on stop? When's the last time they were on stop? What's the payment history for this customer? Do we? So I think what I've seen from the summaries so far, they're just looking at the record and kind of trying to create some information. Actually, it needs to go back and look at what it needs to do is stop the user needing to drill down into other parts of the system, because that's the summary information that they want rather than directly on the record.
Okay. Brilliant. Okay, I think one thing we haven't mentioned that's coming on the 1st of October is obviously a pay increase. I wish a price increase. So obviously the cost of Business Central is going up from the 1st of October. So something has to pay for all these new features, I'm guessing, and the investment Microsoft are making. So that will be happening as well. But hopefully, from what we've talked about today, people can see the benefit of what Microsoft is doing.
So when the price is going up, the price of pretty much everything has gone up in the last few years. I mean, we've had currency adjustments, but this is the first time in 5, 6, 7 years.
Business Central itself has had an increase. CSP licensing all got an increase about 18 months ago, so people did see a price go up. You get your currency corrections, and it came down earlier in the year, so that was good. But this is the first time Business Central as a product on its own has an increase for, I think Microsoft was saying 10 years. So I think customers might dispute that. They have paid more, but Business Central itself, rather than like a general overarching pay rise. A pay rise kicked on. Pay rise is on my mind. I've got an appraisal coming up. The price will be going up. But as you said, it's the first time in a long time that it's the product itself has been hit with that.
So, and I'm very critical of Microsoft at some time, but they keep, they've subscription billing they've introduced. They're now getting quality. Potentially they have extended the scope of what
features.
As you said, I don't know many organisations, and our customers included, that haven't had to put their prices up in the last period of time.
Post-COVID.
Yeah, so this is the first time it's happened. I think if it never happens, then people then get very annoyed when it does, maybe. But we're looking at about a 10% increase. There will be a currency correction around that time as well in October, so hopefully if the pound is doing better than
the US dollar hasn't been doing great against some of the other currencies, so there might be a little bit
of an offset, but we've written to our customers warning them, but if you're not using BC, and of course it doesn't come in until your term is renewed,
until you're contracted.
It might be throughout the year, but just probably worth mentioning.
3 years.
It might take if it's good timing for you, it might take another year before it hits, but it depends case by case.
Okay. And if you're going to sign up for a Business Central, actually signing up in September, presumably then
and you
is a good thing to do, because you fix your price for
if you do buy a
12 months,
license or 2
whatever.
licenses, then that will guarantee your price for the next 12 months or 3 years if you sign.
So if you haven't got a license currently,
and you
get one before October, and you can save yourself some money.
Or listen to this podcast if they haven't.
Well,
you'd be surprised. But if they've got this far through it, well done. Okay, great.
Well done, full stop, really, isn't it?
Always good to see what's coming, and then it's interesting. We've had another 20 questions for what they said might be coming. The way
everyone's
mind thinks about how that's going to be.
Preview drops, early September, so I think that's the one.
We'll know more then. We'll have more detail.
Brilliant. 19th of August today, so on when we record this, so it's another 10 days or so, and it's on my birthday, so it's always great to see all the new features land on my birthday.
Perfect. And on that bombshell, Liz, James, Matt, thanks for being on the podcast as always, and I hope everyone's enjoyed it, and we'll see you soon on another episode of Techman Talks Dynamics.